So I hope you have a lot of stamina this afternoon, because we need to do justice to what God is saying here. And I hope you've got your Bibles here, because I really trust that this word is going to bless us. Something that God has spoken to us actually at the Guildford Church. I spoke about it a little bit at intercession. Who was at the intercession on Monday? I think Serena. So you are hearing some of it twice now, but praise God, that will help you to focus I really believe that God is just guiding us gently here, and there's some things that we need to note before we go on. And I remember 2 weeks ago, we prayed at the Guildford prayer and call it devotion, whatever we do there. It's just amazing how God pictures this morning again, when we get together. But one of the words that God gave us was actually Joshua 7:8, about Joshua pointing the spear toward Ai, a little town that they had to conquer, and for the armies to be commissioned to go and conquer the city. And I want to just give some context to it, because I believe there's a few things that God actually wants to teach us in this. Now, just before we get to Joshua chapter 7 and 8 this afternoon, I want to give some context just to where the people of God is at this moment in time in their pursuit to get to the promised land. Now, all of us know that they got the promised land at the end, but reading these stories, we actually experienced the hardship that they went through to actually win whatever God had promised them before. It was not just smooth sailing all along. At this moment of time, Joshua was actually the man leading the Israelites to go over the Jordan and to go into the promised land, and he was the leader that was supposed to now get them to conquer every city that they had to inhabit, that they had to go and live in. And so you guys will know that they went first to the city of Jericho, and just after going over the Jordan toward the city of Jericho, they met the commander of the armies, and we know that that would be Jesus, and he met with them, and he had a conversation with them about their focus as they get into the promised land, that he is the commander of the armies, and then he gave them some ways in how they would actually go about in conquering the city of Jericho. It was not a traditional fighting. The people of God then went 7 times around the city, and the 7th time the city walls fell down, and they could enter the city without any trouble, and they basically leveled the city and just saved those who were faithful to the cause. And so they are on a spiritual high, as well as a physical, energized level, because they are now busy conquering the land. And Joshua, we know, is such a faithful man. Deuteronomy 34, which is just the chapter before Joshua, it's the handover from Moses to Joshua. And I like this scripture because it actually sets us up for what is Joshua's role and actually stature at this time. Verse 9, it says, Joshua the son of Nun was full of the spirit of wisdom, for Moses had laid his hands on him. So the people of Israel obeyed him and did as the Lord had commanded Moses. So this man called Joshua now had all of the authority that Moses had. There was a laying of hands. He was leading them, and he had to hear from God. Now, also I must remind you that Joshua is the faith man, one of the 2 faith spies that actually went to the land of promise to go and spy and see what they would have to do to take the land. And then it was only 2 of the 12 spies that was actually full of faith and said, we can conquer this land. 10 of them actually said, no ways, we are like grasshoppers, in front of these giants. Even the Nephilim lives in this in this land, Nephilim meaning half spirit, half human beings, massive human beings that lived at that time, and only David was the one to sort out the last of the Nephilim. But massive people that lived in the land, and they felt like grasshoppers in the sight of these people. And so Joshua, being this man of faith, now leads the people of God, and you would think that after 40 years of waiting, Joshua is now hyped up to take every city, just with a breeze. He is at this stage, I think, 80 years old probably, because waiting 40 years after you were 14 probably makes you about 80. So let's give him some credit. But one thing that I do know about Joshua is he's a man of faith. And so at this stage, they are then going to the second city, and it's called the city of Ai. And this city is actually a lot smaller, and they send out some spies to go and see what this city is all about and how they should, again, strategize to get into the city. And so one mistake that they make is the assumption that God is with them and how they should go about in fighting this battle. And these spies come back, and according to the info that the intel that they got at hand, decisions was made, and these guys said, listen, it's such a small city, let's just send 2,000 to 3,000 men, and then we can conquer this city quick, and just move on. Because this is the promised land. This is the place that God has sent us to. Joshua 7, verse 2 to 3. Joshua sent men from Jericho to Ai, which is near Beth-aven, each of Bethel, and said, east of Bethel, and said to them, go up and spy out the land. And the men went up and spied out Ai, and they returned to Joshua and said to him, do not have all the people go up, but let about 2,000 or 3,000 men go up and attack Ai. Do not make the whole people toil up there, for they are few. So, verse 4, we read that about 3,000 men were sent then, went up there from the people, and they fled before the men of Ai. Okay, we've missed something here, because something went wrong with the intel. 3,000 men went to the city, and the next verse we read, so about 3,000 men went up there from the people, and they fled before the men of Ai. Something strange happened in between. These men, on a quest to conquer the city, and they turned very quickly back home, and they ran for their lives. And verse 5 says, and the men of Ai killed about 36 of their men and chased them before the gate as far as Shebarim, and struck them at the descent. And the hearts of the people melted. Listen to this now. Okay, this is now the mighty nation of Israel that's on a conquest to take the promised land. After 40 years of waiting in the wilderness, and now they're ready. Now they're ready to fight. The commander of the armies are with them. And the hearts of the people melted and became as water. Because of their own strength and their disobedience, they were now afraid. Making some assumptions about the way forward in which they need to go into this what was supposed to be a little battle. And so the season of battle and breakthroughs demands exact details and obedience from God's people, and they've missed it. Now let's read into verse 6 of chapter 7, and this is a place where God actually expected them to destroy the disobedience that was in their midst. Then Joshua tore his clothes. Okay, the mighty Joshua, man of faith, and fell to the earth on his face before the ark of the Lord until the evening. He and the elders of Israel, before you judge him, just think of yourself as I read these stories, in the midst of your battles. And they put dust on their heads. And Joshua said, alas, O Lord God, why have you brought this people? Now it's again this people. It's like Moses speaking here. It's now not my people. It's now this. It's not even God's people. It's now this people over the Jordan at all, to give us into the hands of the Amorites, to destroy us with that we had been content to dwell beyond the Jordan. Now it's actually going worse again. He's saying, you should have left us that side of the Jordan, never to bring us over to the promised land. This is the man of faith that I'm talking about. The man that we often refer to with Caleb as one of the faith giants in God's kingdom. Oh Lord, what can I say? I mean, Israel has turned their backs before their enemies, for the Canaanites, and he's now concerned about, even reputation, for the Canaanites, and all the inhabitants of the land will hear of it, and will surround us and cut off our name from the earth. Now I know you guys will never do that. You never say to God, God, if I look bad, you're going to look bad as well. So come through for me, God, I need you. And what will you do for your great name? As if God cannot look after his own name. The Lord said to Joshua, get up. Why have you fallen on your face? Israel has sinned. They have transgressed my covenant that I commanded them. They have taken some of the devoted things. They have stolen and lied and put them among their own belongings. Now, just to lay some Quran, we'll read from verse 19 further on in chapter 17. Clearly there were some things that's wrong now among the people of God, and God almost comes to a standstill with them, and then losing a battle against a small town brings them to a place of frustration and desperation so that they can actually revisit conversations with God. And at this moment, we know that disappointment and frustration actually brings them to inquire from God, and it includes throwing their toys out of God. Clearly, if you read Joshua's story. Joshua says, God, why? How can you send us over the Jordan and now we are in this situation? The one beautiful thing that I can say about Joshua is at least they went to God. That in the midst of their frustration and their trouble, they turned to God, they put sackcloth on themselves, and they go and ask God the necessary questions. And God was quite willing to answer them. Let's go to verse 19 to 25. Then Joshua said to Achan, my son, give glory to the Lord. Now this is the in-between verses that I can't read all of it, was just that there was a clear in the camp examination of what went wrong. If God says that there's disobedience, let's talk about it, and some investigation was done. Now Achan comes before Joshua. Joshua says, my son, give glory to the Lord God of Israel and give praise to him. Tell me now what you have done. Do not hide it from me. And Achan answered Joshua, truly I have sinned against the Lord God of Israel, and this is what I did. When I saw among the spoil a beautiful cloak from Shinar, and the 200 shekels of silver and a bar of gold weighing 50 shekels, then I covered them and took them. And see, they are hidden in the earth inside my tent, with the silver underneath. So Joshua sent messengers, and they ran to the tent, and behold, it was hidden in his tent with the silver underneath. And they took them out of the tent and brought them to Joshua and to all the people of Israel, and they laid them before the Lord. And Joshua and all of Israel with him took Achan the son of Zerah, and the silver and the cloak and the bar of gold, and his sons and daughters, and his oxen, and the donkeys and sheep, and his tent, and all that he had. And they brought them up to the valley of Achor. And Joshua said, why did you bring trouble upon us? The Lord brings trouble on you today. And all Israel stoned him with stones, they burned them with fire, and stoned them with stones. So this is a terrible death. Clearly, if we look at this, and I do believe God is talking to us. This morning we spoke about it even in the Guildford context. Maybe we're taking it too far in saying, it is our second quest. But one thing that we did say to God is God, we want to make sure that we're obedient to every step that you give us. And if there's any disobedience in our ourselves to and some intel that we followed that was not of you, then God come and cleanse our hearts. Come and bring us to a place of safety. Bring us to a place where we can examine ourselves and even receive healing from you where is necessary. Now, I wanted to say to you today, this brings all of us to the place of examination. Because this place of destroying disobedience means that we don't follow the advice of people, but we follow God's direction. And many times in our pursuit to follow God, we get so distracted in our desperation to see breakthrough and to see God coming through for us, that we start to listen to people and their opinions about the position that we are in. And we want to make decisions concerning God's kingdom in our ability, in our own way of thinking. But one thing that I do know about this season, as a leadership team, we yesterday just spent time together with God. And, I'm so excited about what God is doing in our hearts, because one thing that I do recognize is that this place where Joshua was at, this man of the hour, is a place that demands humility. A place where you need to say, God, come and speak to me. Come and lead me to the place where I know I'm in the right place where you want me to be. Now, the third place that God brought them to is he gave them his strategy. Now listen to Joshua 8. It says, and the Lord said to Joshua, verse 1, do not fear and do not be dismayed. Take all the fighting men with you and arise, go up to Ai. See, I have given it into your hand. This time around, God is saying, I'm giving it into your hand. The king of Ai and his people, his city and his land. And you shall do to Ai and its king as you did to Jericho and its king. Only its spoil and its livestock you shall take as plunder for yourselves. Lay an ambush against the city. So this time around, God says, you can actually take the spoil. Now, let me just get back to the previous sin of Achan. So Achan, basically God gave the Israelites the command, you can fight the city, you will overpower the city, but you do not take any of the spoil for yourselves. Give it to the house of God, to Levites. And Achan basically took some of the spoil for himself. This time around, God says you can take it, but no person, only the spoil and the animals, the livestock. You shall take as a plunder for yourselves. Lay an ambush against the city behind it. So Joshua and all the fighting men rose up to go to Ai. Joshua chose 30,000 men. This time around, it's quite a large army. Joshua was not going to make any mistakes here of valor and sent them out by night. And he commanded them, behold, you shall lie in ambush against the city behind it. Do not go very far from the city, but all of you remain ready. And I and all the people who are with me will approach the city. And when they come out against us, just as before, we shall flee before them. They will come up after us until we have drawn them away from the city. For they will say they are fleeing from us just as before. So we will flee before them. Then you shall rise up from the ambush and seize the city, for the Lord your God will give it into your hand. And as soon as you have taken the city, you shall set the city on fire. You should do so according to the word of God. See, I have commanded you. So clearly, God is giving very clear instructions at this stage on how the city should be taken. One part of the army would come from the north. They will approach the men of Ai again. They will entice them to actually get out of the city and follow them. And then a second part of the army would come, burn down the city, the men of Ai would turn around, and this is now what would actually happen. They would turn around, see that the city is busy burning, and that the women and children are busy dying, and they would flee back, and the Israelites would come from both sides and just destroy all of them. None of them left. The king was actually put on a stake until night time, and the city was in ruins. Nothing was left of the city. So a twofold strategy. The one was the front line, which Joshua went with the men from the north, and then from the western front, they burned the city, and about 12,000 people in the city were killed and destroyed in the quest. As I was just meditating and praying about it, I really believe God is also giving us some clear understanding in even the strategies that we are busy following. And one of the things is, if we can take the Western Front as an example, for me that represents prayer. The fact that in all prayer covering, we will see that the real fight belongs to those who in the spirit can actually already prepare the ground for the battle to be won. And just for you guys sitting in the church today, I just want to say, I'm excited about what God is giving to us as a family. One thing that I do know after COVID that He led us as a leadership team into, that is different than in the past, is He said, follow me one step at a time. We even had a conversation this week, just about vision. What is God's vision of this church? And the strange thing is that, always before COVID, we always had these amazing strategies, and we did the SWOT analysis, and we would actually connect ourselves to certain goals for the year, and we have our main goals that we will follow. And these guys will tell you we were so organized in all the strategies that we had in place. And then after COVID, God said to us, now you trust me one step at a time. And as a strategy in itself, it's quite frustrating. Now, I believe actually it's not just for us as a church. I believe that the church of God at this stage is in such, I won't say turmoil, because God is not confused. He prepares His bride, He prepares His people. But I think there is a change busy happening, where in some church circles, and even in our church, in its movement in itself, we've become so dependent on corporate structures and corporate vision, and having all of the things in place that is necessary. And I'm not belittling any of those things today. I believe we must have a focus, we must have but one thing that we cannot miss by reading the scripture and what God is saying to us at this moment is the perfect will of God. And the strange thing about this is that following God one step at a time is a lot more frustrating. Because you don't know what tomorrow is necessarily going to bring you. But you deal with what God placed on the table right now. And within that, your dependence on Him becomes so much more. Because you only know what God is going to see as the next thing that He said you must do. And if you're obedient to that, He speaks about the next, and the next, and the next. And so, for those of people that are listening from the outside, please bear with us as we do some strategy here. Because guys, we want to be dependent on God like never before. The only way that we can do that is to create a kind of prayer culture to hear His voice along every step of the way. And one thing that I learned of Joshua and the confidence even that they had after Jericho is not to forsake the dependence that God wanted them to create on Him at such a time is to get to a place, and I even want to go as far as to say, I don't always understand even why God has taken us, outside of the city at this stage. For us it's a lot of sacrifice, us as a family. And so for you, in the commitment that you've made, it's not just exclusively for us. We don't always understand why, God is leading us to be obedient in this season in the way that He is. I go with Marley to support most. I enjoy it a lot as well. I must say these days it's really amazing to see. I said to my wife as we were driving here, I said, I can't, this whole weekend, I just see those two girls' faces in my mind, just as we prayed for them, the tears were just rolling down their cheeks, and we just gave them words, and you could see how God unlocks their hearts and just speak into their lives, and they sit there, two young people. I think they're still probably doing A levels or whatever, and that their lives have been changed right there and then for the future and what it holds for their lives. It's just amazing how I think actually those schools are going to end up in ministry if I follow the words that God has given us for them. But the reason why I'm mentioning that, it's so precious to see how God individually walks with each one of us a road in a season where you don't understand everything that God is doing. But it's so beautiful because God orchestrates everything. And I want to encourage you, in your walk with Christ at this moment, let's see God's face in a supernatural way. We as a leadership team said that to one another. Maybe on Wednesdays, getting together as small groups, we should rather the first Wednesday of the month just spend time in prayer. And I know how it works. When you say it's a prayer small group, then nobody preaches. Everyone loves fellowship, and they don't like to get into prayer. But that's the point. And I want to just encourage you guys. Let's take this season for what it is. We talk about strategy, guys. Let's hear God's voice and act. Anything and everything that He says. Now, just a few things that we know God has said to us for Guildford, and that's, and maybe I should just say this. We talk about Guildford a lot these days, and it's just because it's an extension of this ministry. We must get together excited about what God is doing because He's extending us. Okay? It's not something that happens on that side. And God is doing something very special. But, I also believe in the midst of a Marley going out, these wonderful people doing intercession, we must support one another. And sometimes we're not on the forefront of everything. But burning down the city, being the Western Front, preparing the way is the best place to be at, to see the victory happening in our midst. What's special about the people of God at this time is that God actually makes everything to come to a standstill to get back to the Mount Ebal. We'll talk about that. Joshua 8, verse 30 to 35. That's the fourth thing that I want to mention. He's recalibrating them to His purposes. Verse 30. At that time, Joshua built an altar to the Lord, the God of Israel, on Mount Ebal. Now, maybe before I read on, this is quite a significant mountain. There was two mountains when they passed over the Jordan. There was two mountains. Now, mountains, for those of you that were in Israel before, mountains is not kind of mountains that these guys would know in Cape Town and these two mountains called Ebal, and the other one was Gerizim, was they, as they pass over the river, God says to them, and now you take 12 stones, every tribe representing one stone, bringing one stone, and heap them on top of one another, on this mount. And here you establish a covenant between me and the people of Israel forever. That I will be with you. And the Mount Ebal was the one of curses, and the one Gerizim was the one of promise, where they read out the promises of God toward the people of Israel. So in this land, this is what God will do for you as His people. So it was a consecrating moment between God and His people. Before they entered into the promised land, God wanted them to know what He will do and what the terms of this covenant would be as they enter into being His people. But on Mount Ebal, it's the curses that will happen if they don't do what God has called them to do. And that was recited before them, before they entered into the land, in much depth. And strangely enough, after this episode, now they've gone on. Now we also know that there's this leadway from between these two mountains that they even call the artery between the west and the east of the Israel area, or going into Israel. That they had to pass through, and God brings them back to Mount Ebal after their episode at Ai to remind them of why He brought them over the Jordan. One thing that I just want to say to you guys after today, we're going to end off today's sermon or service in proclaiming again His promises. Because when you go through a season like this where you trust in God, God shows you sometimes the disobedience, and I'm not saying nobody's disobedient yet. All of us are disobedient from time to time, and we must deal with it. God speaks to you, deal with it. Okay, that's for sure. We as a leadership team are committed to do it ourselves, and we are keeping one another even accountable in certain areas. But God brings him back to Mount Ebal for quite a very specific reason. And here Joshua takes the opportunity, and I don't have the time now to read through it, or maybe I should. At that time Joshua built an altar before the Lord God of Israel on Mount Ebal, just as Moses, the servant of the Lord, had commanded the people of Israel. As it is written in the book of the law of Moses, an altar of uncut stones upon which no man has wielded an iron tool, and they offered on it burnt offerings to the Lord and sacrificed peace offerings. And there in the presence of the people of Israel he wrote on the stones a copy of the law of Moses which he had written. And all Israel's sojourner, as well as native born, with the elders and officers and judges, stood on opposite sides of the ark before the Levitical priests, who carried the ark of the covenant of the Lord, half of them in front of Mount Gerizim and half of them in front of Mount Ebal, just as Moses, the servant of the Lord, had commanded at first, to bless the people of Israel. And afterward he read all the words of the law, and here Joshua takes it very far, the blessing and the curse according to all that is written in the book of the law. There was not a word of all of Moses' commandments that Joshua did not read before all the assembly of Israel, and the women and the little ones and the sojourners who lived among them. I'm just astonished at the kind of detail that God went into with a nation like Israel, to sort out certain things before He wants them to go further for their own sake. 36 men already died because they were disobedient and didn't follow God, in their pursuit to Ai. And here we see the picture of one man and his family being disobedient to the detriment of many others. And God says, can we get back to the detail? Did I not say, do not take of your spoil? And I was thinking, God, this is probably not even 1% of disobedient people. It's 0.000 whatever percent of disobedience that we're talking about. Can't you just oversee Achan and his family and just move on? Get into the promised land and take the promised land. It's no, God stops the boat. He says, let's revisit Mount Ebal for your sake. It's not good for you to get the victories that is necessary and the promises that I've given you if you walk in disobedience. Get back to the disobedience and destroy all disobedience so that you can be aligned and recalibrated to my will. This is a humbling move for them. You can go and read in Deuteronomy 27 verse 4, Deuteronomy 27 verse 13. When they left or went over the Jordan and God's promises and his reason for getting on the mountaintops together with them. But one thing that I do believe God wants to say to us today is revisit my promises. Revisit the things that I have called you to do. And come and just recovenant with me. And as an intercession team, we this week just use the opportunity to just remind ourselves of so many promises that God has given us. This Wimbledon area, there's so many beautiful things that God has called us to. And I, this morning even, we spoke into some of them. There was a harbor that God showed us clearly, the light tower, and people that would go to the nations to go and share the gospel. And I stand on those promises. I'm going to revisit them and I'm going to speak into them, and I want to ask you to do the same with me. And as we were doing it this week and even yesterday as a leadership team, one of my old friends, and I was actually said to the guys yesterday as well, so astonished that 5 intercessor friends that I've got from years ago, one even 20 years, literally 20 years ago, I've spoken to, and just this week connected with me and gave me words for the church out of the blue. And one such lady, is staying, she was split in South Africa, and she sent me a word, and it was such a beautiful thing to me. Is that's when God really starts to make sense in the midst of a word like this, where for us as a church we need to recalibrate ourselves. And she basically said, Ezekiel 37 verse 47, then he said to me, prophesy over these bones and say to them, O dry bones, hear the word of the Lord. Thus says the Lord God to these bones, behold, I will cause breath to enter you, and you shall live. And I will lay sinews upon them, and I will cause flesh to come upon them, and cover you with skin, and put breath in you, and you shall live, and you shall know that I am the Lord. So I prophesied as I was commanded. Now, as I prophesied, there was a sound, and behold, a rattling, and the bones came together, bone to its bone. And she fervently said to me, listen, just let the people speak into the wind directions. Let them prophesy life over the promises that God has given over such a long period of time, because it's going to come to pass. Speak them into being. And Isaiah 43 verse 18 was another scripture that I just want to share with you guys. Remember not the former things, nor consider the things of old. Behold, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs forth, do you not perceive it? I will make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. Now, one thing that I want to just entrust you this afternoon is that I believe in the promises of God, as I want to believe you are as well. I want to believe that you are as serious as I am to see them coming to fruition. Sometimes we sit like Joshua with our disappointments and frustrations. And then God says, come on, lift your head, focus on the things that I've called you to do. I've got a city called I that I want you to go and conquer. I'm going to give you every strategy that is needed. I believe in the power of prayer, and I believe that as God gives us the boldness, the wisdom, the insight, God's insight. Trying to follow the camera. As we follow God's insight, to actually speak to those bones, those circumstances, and those promises. Normally, you speak over these spirits, they will be excited. Salvations will come in as well promises. So I can go forward. Those words that God has given us over years, promise, we're going to speak them into being. The worship leaders, they're going to come. We're going to speak over those bones, those dry bones and dry places, because God is going to provide them. Wherever God is, there's freedom and there's resurrection power. Okay? And God will give us a strategy in time. So, guys, I don't have all the answers, even concerning our involvement in Kingdom at this stage. We are as committed as ever to see Wimbledon's promises come to fulfillment. Nothing is going to change in our circumstances here. We are, committed. We are going to see beautiful things happen in here. And I just want you to know that. I know some of you even wondered, guys, are you still as committed to Wimbledon as you? 200%. We know the promises are standing, and that God is going to do beautiful things. But it's time to speak over those bones. Okay? So it can get flesh. We just spoke about it this week. But, if there's none of your peer group, then let's trust God for it. Let's trust God for young people of your age. Young people like Heather, that we can. Guys, all of us have our desires of why God has placed you in this church and in this community, and He's going to give us the wisdom that is necessary to see that promise come into fruition. I don't have the answers. I'm to be honest with you. I am quite prophetic. I believe God has spoken a lot in the past, in and through me. But I must tell you, it's not as if God gives me this mighty cloud of what's going to happen in the next 3 years and how many goals we need to set. He's really just saying, take it one step at a time. I will fulfill my promise. Okay, and in doing so, we are going to see the harvest. We're going to see the fruit, and that's why we are here. We want to reach this nation. We want to see this nation come to its fruition. One of the promises that I was just reminding God yesterday, just saying, God, you said you sent the Jonas to reach this nation again. God, I call them forth. I'm calling the giants of the faith that you've promised to us. Sons that's coming from afar, sons that are local, that you need to raise up, that we can plant churches with. I'm calling them forth. Trusting God to actually bringing them out of the woodwork and to present them to His vision. It's not our vision. It's not Hercules' church. It's not your church. It's not the leadership's church. This is God's church, and He's got a journey with His church. And I'm persuaded for that. And I am so committed to say, God, if we've missed you in the past in some areas, then it's time to repent. It's time to say what. And yesterday it was actually so amazing just to say that it's not really as if you could say we've done anything wrong thus far. It's because we have been obedient in so many areas. We can go and nitpick and get real little things, but we've been faithful. And so I actually will send on the WhatsApp group just that link again of the Australian guy that was here 2 weeks ago from Waiwan. You probably didn't hear because of his accent.
I was on Facebook.
Oh, okay, sorry. I was just following the
No, I was trying to remember, but I remember the girl that was prophesying.
No, but I want to send it to you this week, and I'll just reduce it to the part that he's speaking. But that God has a plan of just deep foundations before He can build big or large buildings, and it takes time. And we don't always understand when it comes to building, basements and underground structures. It doesn't always make sense, and we don't want to even get mightily excited about it. But it's the faithfulness that counts. It's the effort and the sacrifice that goes into the foundations that allows the building to look glamorous when it grows. And so, yes, for us, it's definitely a foundational building phase. We are growing as a congregation here in the UK, and even in Guildford. There's so many promises that God has given us for that place, for us.